From WLWT, this is Issues, Young Adults Challenges 2017.
Hello, welcome to Issues. I'm Jan-Michele Lemon Kearney of SESH Communications and the Cincinnati Herald. You know, we are going to do a special program for the next 3 weeks. We really want to hear the voices of young people. Our producer, Jeff Moran, said, you know, we're always talking about, you know, what the problems are, what the solutions are for young adults. Let's ask them, let's talk to them. So over these next few weeks, we're going to talk about topics such as police-community relations. We're going to talk about drugs and alcohol. And today, we're going to talk about guns and gang violence. So glad you're here. Let me introduce our panel for today. Okay, so we're going to start with Michael Higgs.
How you doing?
Liz Brazile. Then we're going to go to Zaire Thomas and Nathaniel M. Livingston, and you want to be called Nate?
Nate,
okay. All right, we're going to come back so each of you can tell us a little bit about yourselves. But first, we want to see a video made by Officer Donald Jordan with the Cincinnati Police Department. Here we go.
Gangs and gun violence. Around here in Cincinnati, a lot of young people turn to gangs or groups because the generation before them has failed them. They're looking to belong to something, be protected. They're associated with people that live in their neighborhood. The violence that's associated with it amongst our young people is more than likely because of PTSD. They're desensitized to violence. There's no connection to the person that they're committing these violent acts to. You know, there's no empathy. I think the more we teach love, we instill love in our children, the less likely those violent acts would take place. But social media has played a large role in this. They're able to see so much violence, world star hip hop. I mean, you've actually witnessed murders on this site. And the more young people see that type of stuff, the more they see the violence in their neighborhood, it becomes normal. And unfortunately, it's not normal. You know, PTSD has to be treated. It has to be treated. We have young people that, quite frankly, have seen some of the things that we as officers have seen. They've witnessed this stuff and, you know, it goes untreated. So, one, we have to recognize that this is a problem. And as adults, family members, counselors, teachers, someone has to recognize when a kid is acting up that he or she's just not acting up because they're bad or, you know, have disciplinary problems. It's more because of what they've been experiencing at home or in their communities. So PTSD has to be treated as a health epidemic, much like the heroin epidemic. You know, you witness violent acts, you see so much violence. I mean, it's not normal for anyone to see a person laying on the ground with their brains blown out. But just like officers, we see this stuff day in and day out. Well, the people in the communities are witnessing this. We at least have avenues to go and get help. But these kids that see this stuff, they don't get the counseling or you know, it's just business as usual, which makes them desensitized to it.
Officer Jordan talked on a lot of different topics, and we're going to talk about all of those. I want to take a minute and let our panelists tell you a little bit about themselves. Let's start with Michael Higgs.
How you doing? My name is Michael. I am a Howard graduate. I'm studying at Cincinnati State for web design, and I have my majors in communication and Afro-American studies.
Very good, thanks.
My name is Liz, and I'm a recent graduate of the University of Cincinnati's undergraduate journalism program, and I'm an intern at the Cincinnati Herald.
Wonderful. Okay, Zaire.
I'm a rising senior coming this year. I didn't choose the school yet, so.
Okay, all right, very good, okay.
I'm Nathaniel Livingston. I'm an intern at the Cincinnati Herald, 23 years old, and I went to North College Hill High School.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right, very good. Okay, so thank you, all of you. So let's just start with your initial reaction to Officer Jordan's video. What was everybody thinking? And anyone can answer the question.
I think that, you know, a lot of the problems that he, like, you know, made a key point on as far as gang violence. I mean, I personally never seen gang violence in my community. Like, growing up, I mean, it was violence, but it wasn't gang violence. I mean, like, it was mostly over like territorial kind of thing. And that's why I see in the city in general, like in Cincinnati, like, I mean, there might be a misconception going on, like when it comes to, you know, gang violence in the city, but I don't see gangs being prevalent. I mean, I see people they might claim colors here and there, but ain't no.
Well, what is your definition of a gang?
I mean, a gang.
And anyone can jump in and answer.
Well, from like, you know, a general perspective, you would think like most people look at gangs as being like, well, I got a red flag, I got a blue flag, or I'm claiming colors, I'm doing, you know, like this and that. That's why I look at it as a gang. Like, that's what the typical person would look at as a gang. But I mean, a gang could be, you know, just it's a you know, group of kids, you know, just hanging on the block. You know what I mean? That's how the police see them. You know what I mean? If you go on the block and you just, I mean, you might be with your friends after school, or y'all might, you know what I mean, be with a group of guys, and they might just see y'all and they just assume that you're a gang. Like,
okay, well, let me just interject. Okay, so under Ohio law, and I was kind of surprised about this, but a gang is 3 or more people who are together for some kind of criminal activity, and they have a list of 12 criminal acts. But so, and they have to have some kind of symbol or some kind of location. There has to be some kind of connection. So they're saying a lot of people now don't want to say they're in gangs because that implies, that's like saying I'm a criminal. But under Ohio law, still these groups of 3 or more are considered gangs.
Right, and I think that's just, I think that's bogus for real. Like,
okay.
Because I mean, I remember hanging on the block with some of my friends, and we just.
And you were perceived as a gang, but you weren't. Yeah, but you weren't really doing a criminal activity.
Right. We done been jumped out on by task force and everything. Like.
Okay, so, we're going to get back and talk about that. Michael wanted to jump in. Yeah. And you don't have to raise your hand. Go ahead and talk.
I'm sorry. I just felt like that type of law that you just defined is troublesome because 3 to 5... Which
is Ohio law, okay.
Which is crazy. 3 to 5 people all hanging together dressed as the same thing, that's a business. Now, I understand the criminal association with it. Okay, that's a gang. But at the end of the day, the police are not going to know who has a criminal history if they are doing criminal activities. So I just feel like that type of misconception kind of, I don't know, it just makes the neighborhood a little bit more chaotic because it's an outside looking in situation and no one understands what's happening. The people who are in the gang, they understand what's happening, but the police don't, and then that's the miscommunication. And then so many problems happens from there.
And so you're saying just automatically from the beginning, if they're, as Nate was saying, if he's hanging out with his friends and they're dressed alike, but there's no criminal intent, right, they still might be perceived as being a gang, although they're not.
Exactly. And I feel like that's just discrimination in another form. And at the end of the day, I feel like there needs to be more of an effort to understand what happens in these communities and what these people are doing. They're just the outside looking in. These people are strangers with badges coming into our neighborhoods, not really doing anything. They just come to clean it up and then they leave. But they don't prevent anything. Okay,
that's a good point. But so my question to you, to all of you is, but are there gangs? I mean, everybody who's together may be dressed alike, doesn't mean they're a gang, but are there gangs?
There definitely are gangs in Cincinnati. I've written stories about criminal gang activity here in the city. You know, a couple years ago, a young girl was killed at a Sweet 16 birthday party because of a gang altercation and was hit by a stray bullet. And I wrote about that. And so I think there is, a problem to be addressed as far as young people being involved in gangs in Cincinnati. Perhaps it's not as widespread or prevalent as it would be in a city like Chicago or LA. But there definitely is something to be looked at here.
Okay, we're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Okay, we're here talking with young people today about guns and gang violence. And again, we've got Michael Higgs, Liz Brazile, Zaire Thomas, and Nate Livingston, and they're all sharing their perspectives on Michael hates the Ohio law definition of gang, 3 or more people together for a criminal activity with some kind of symbol. But Liz was saying, but there are gangs.
Yeah, there definitely are gangs of young people in Cincinnati. And while you do have to, keep in mind that there are discriminatory laws and practices that law enforcement engage in, there still is an issue, and you can't, minimize it. I know there have been problems with gangs in the downtown area of young people in the north side area, getting into disputes that lead to violence against innocent bystanders. And you have situations where, we talk about labels, oh, you're labeling someone as a gang when they might not be. They're the ones who are identifying themselves as a unit of that would fall under the definition of a gang under Ohio law.
Okay.
And to some degree, I agree, with Liz, because, if you have 3 or more people, well, not even 3 or more people, if they're all engaged in criminal activity and they do claim some kind of, some kind of logo or some kind of affiliation kind of thing, then it could be labeled a gang. But, like I said, like me personally, my personal experience, I've been around people, like who's actually involved in the streets, and they don't label themselves, they don't think of themselves as gangs, we don't look at it as a gang. We look at it as, we're just trying to survive, what I'm saying? So, I don't know. That's
like a friendship.
Kind of like a friendship, we just, like brothers.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And family.
Yeah,
okay.
so.
Zaire, I was going to ask you, what's the high school take on that?
That's how most people look at it, because some people that don't have love at home and don't have support in places, they go towards, it's not really a gang, it's really a brotherhood, so they can survive together, so that they can live off of each other. And most people take it as a gang, but they just trying to survive, because if you don't have a helping family or a loving home, it turns into something else. So you could be beat at home and then turn to violence because that's all you know. So it's not really a gang, because you can be by yourself and not 3 or more.
Okay, but are there gangs that are violent?
There are gangs that are violent, of course, but like I'm saying,
well, let's talk about those for a minute.
Let's
talk about
gangs that are
let's
violent?
not talk about the brotherhood of friends and friendship and family. But it does sound like, let me just get to what Zaire is saying. You touch on something that Officer Jordan said, that often people join gangs because they need that kind of protection and they need that kind of family feeling. But I'm saying they're joining gangs that are actually violent, or that or sell drugs. So what about those gangs?
They really, the gangs in Cincinnati are not really gangs. They're just group of young boys that are trying to follow after somebody. And it just gets violent because, like he said, territory. Everybody claims their hood, like Westwood or Avondale. So everybody claims a different place. So they feel like they have to protect their place. And that's when it really gets violent, because they feel like somebody is trying to disrespect their home or where they're from.
Okay.
Well, can I also say, a lot of those disputes are the result of somebody owing somebody money because of a drug transaction gone wrong. So you can't discount the fact that there is a criminal element to some of what's going on. But at the same time, I do understand that the gangs oftentimes are a result of misguided, young people just looking for an outlet and looking for a circle of people and support in their lives.
So some of the violence might have to do with the profit margin. If you're cutting into my drug territory, then that's cause for violence.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's where a lot of the violence stems from. It's there is a criminal element inside the equation, because if we in a certain neighborhood and we have somebody that's not from here coming over here trying to buy or trying to take customers or something, that from our they cut in our pockets. So we don't appreciate that, and sometimes it can lead into the other things, but that's not necessarily always a problem. It could be other things too, it could be over something petty. Sometimes it is like that.
Well, how does that happen? So how do people just take a life for something petty? What kind of value is that, Michael?
I mean, to me, gangs are a product of society. We talked about it earlier. There's no money, no income, and there's no true guidance or true teachers at home. So basically, they kind of develop a mentality that's kind of rogue. You know what I mean? I'm going to get it by myself because I feel like I'm by myself. And so when you have that mentality, everybody's an enemy. You know what I'm saying? No one likes to take losses nowadays, even though losses bring you lessons.
Right.
But no one likes to take losses. It's a rogue mentality, like I have to do what I have to do because no one else is in my life, and I'm gonna take care of my own. I'm gonna stand on my 10 toes, and I'm gonna do it.
Okay.
And then that creates all types of problems for people.
All right, we're going to come back. We're going to come back and talk about this a little more. We'll be right back. Stick with this great conversation. We'll be right back. Okay, we're here gaining insight into guns and gang violence with young people. We've got Michael Higgs, Liz Brazile, Zaire Thomas, and Nate Livingston. So welcome back, everybody. Zaire, you were saying that you grew up in a neighborhood that actually had gangs. So tell us about that.
I grew up in Brazile, which is kind of a rowdy neighborhood everybody knows. And when I hear my parents and my grandparents talk about it, they say it used to be a calm neighborhood until like it became an urban area and there was more kids, not enough space. And that's basically stemming off of his thing of territory. So everybody claimed a different street in Price Hill, and there was apartments that you couldn't be in front of somebody else's apartment.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's not always about drugs, you were saying.
Yeah, like it's about them protecting their home. So, and then like when I was—
And is that because it's considered disrespectful to be on someone else's turf? Like if you're in front of my building, that's disrespecting me or something?
It's not even that. It's like if you come to somebody else's house wanting to fight them or wanting to be violent towards them, they're going to retaliate with violence. So that's where it actually came from. And then like me, if you go to the Taste of Cincinnati, there's a lot of young kids down there, and it's like you see police brutality, like, so you just wonder like, how can I protect myself? And that's how most of them think, like if there's police brutality, then maybe I should go out and get me a gun so that I can protect myself and that I won't be harmed.
Okay, and that's part of what you all were saying too about joining in with the group for self-protection. Okay, then Michael, that's a good point. Then Michael, you were saying you wanted to clarify something you said earlier. Then Nate was like, yeah, you need to clarify that. What was it?
Yes, no, gangs, they exist. Was talking about the Ohio law. I find fault in that because it could be misconstrued. Like I could just be with my team promoting my business because we're all wearing the same logo. But no, there is gangs. They are very serious. And like I said before, I feel like they're a product of societal ills. Lack of love, lack of income, and sometimes drugs, but it's not always about drugs. I feel like—
So it's not always, yeah, I found that a little bit surprising because I thought gangs really, I mean, that was a point. I mean, that whole profit from the drug sale, but you're saying there are other reasons. You all are all telling me there are other reasons that people get together, but.
Can I agree with Michael in that regard. I think a lot of criminal activity that you see in these communities and the gang violence that you see, they are products of economic repression and social repression, because you've got people who, you know, they go out, they can't find a job working in, you know, the mainstream, and so what are they going to do? They have to preserve themselves somehow, so they're going to turn to illicit means of generating income. And then you've also got people who don't have the social capital to make it in the professional world because of their background and the communities they come up in and lack of resources. And so gangs kind of provide a social net for people as well. When you talk about turf and territory and disrespect, I think that this country in general, without getting too political,
it's all right, get political.
Has really, you know, done a good job of keeping people oppressed in certain ways. And
well, let me ask you this: when you're talking about the influences, because I'm really concerned about the whole value. When we were talking earlier about, you know, people just kill each other, and you know they felt disrespected, or you're in my territory. Does rap music? This is a touchy question for you. How does rap music impact these values? Is rap music a part of this?
No,
I think.
Go ahead.
I think rap music.
Nate's like, I can't even address that.
Okay. Well, real quick, I'll just make a quick point. I think that rap music doesn't cause the violence. I think the violence causes the rap music to be the way that it is. So
Okay.
it's not the cause, it's just an
It's
effect.
reflecting.
It's an effect that reflects what goes on in the community.
I agree.
Okay, Zaire, what do you say?
I don't know, because like if you grew up around violence, that's what you see. So people take rapping as an outlet for what they see or what they believe. Like Tupac, he took his story and made it into rap so that everybody else could know his story, so that they could see how it really is. Like people that don't know, that didn't grow up in communities like we did, like young black people did, and how they turned out, so you can actually hear and understand better.
When you talk about influence, like I wouldn't just like allocate the blame straight to rap music. You know, it could be. You know,
Does it have a part though?
it could, you know what I'm saying? But it's I don't think that could be like, you know, the dominant force. Like, like, you know, a lot of kids, like it's prevalent now. Like people are growing up in broken homes. Like mothers are gone at work all day, and their fathers is in prison, or you know they're just not there. You know, older brothers or and uncles, they all in the streets. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe even not. Maybe they're just not, like, you know, they don't have the time to stay there and, like, you know, and watch these kids. You know, like, so these kids, they go out and find guidance in the streets. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's kind of what happened with me. Like, you know what I mean? But like I'm just saying, like.
Well, tell us what happened with you, briefly.
Well, briefly, like the same thing. My mother, you know, she was a single mother struggling. You know, she went to work every day. You know, she did her best. You know, she raised me with her all. She the best mother in the world. Shout out to my mama.
All right.
But yeah.
But you had time to kind of get pulled into the streets.
Exactly, because I didn't have my father there. He was never there. You know, I had older brothers, but you know they had kids, and you know they was living their own lives, and you know, so I pretty much just went out on my own and did my own thing, like, you know, and found my own way and got mixed up into the wrong things. But
and then Michael, you wanted to say something because I could hear you.
Oh yeah.
And we're about to wrap up, but I could see you shaking your head when Nate was talking.
It's yes, because I can understand where Nate's coming from, but with rap music, it's a slippery slope. At the end of the day, like, I'll give you an example. In Chicago, what they were doing in Chicago was they were run down on their enemies, and then they will make a song about it. And then their enemies will hear the song, run down on them, make a song about it. That's what they were doing in Chicago. So it's reflective. However, if you don't have guidance, people look to whoever they think is cool. So they may think a rapper is cool doing these rapper things or what they said that they do.
Right.
And I feel like that influences people.
Okay, we're going to come back. We're going to give you a chance for some final thoughts. Okay, we're wrapping up for good. Oh, okay. I would like to thank all of you then. But you know what? We are going to be back next week with young people. Maybe this panel, maybe some others. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Well, this has been a really interesting discussion. We've talked about everything from Ohio law to how friends are misperceived as gangs and why people join gangs. So I want to thank Michael Higgs, Liz Brazile, Zaire Thomas, and Nate Livingston. Stay with us next week because we're going to have more young people and talking about challenges. Have a great week. Stay safe. Stay positive.